Have you ever walked away from a conversation completely exhausted, having spent the entire time defending your choices, your boundaries, or your very character? Every time you over-explain, you hand over your power. Today, we unlock the ancient wisdom of Stoicism to learn why you must never explain yourself again. Reclaim your sovereignty, quiet the noise, and let your actions become your only voice. We live in a world that demands a receipt for our existence. From the moment we step into the public eye, whether that is a literal stage, a crowded office, or merely a family dinner table, we are bombarded with subtle interrogations. Why did you quit that job? Why aren't you married yet? Why did you make that choice? In response, a deep, almost primal anxiety flares up within us. We feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to justify ourselves. We build elaborate verbal fortresses, stacking logic, emotion, and excuses like bricks, hoping that if we can just explain ourselves clearly enough, the other person will finally understand, approve, and validate us. But Stoicism teaches us a harsh and liberating truth. This is a game you can never win. The more you explain, the more you sink into the quicksand of other people's opinions. You willingly step into a courtroom where you are the defendant, and the rest of the world is a judge whose mind was made up long before you even began to speak. To reclaim your power, we must look to the ancient Stoics, thinkers, emperors, and formerly enslaved men, who understood that true freedom begins the moment you resign as the defense attorney for your own life. Lesson 1. Your character speaks louder than your defense. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled the Roman Empire, wrote one of the most powerful maxims in human history in his private journal. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Consider the sheer weight of this statement. As an emperor, Martin was surrounded by senators who plotted against him, generals who doubted him, and citizens who blamed him for plagues and famines. If anyone had a reason to constantly explain his actions, to issue decrees justifying his character, it was him. Yet Martin understood that words are cheap, easily manipulated, and ultimately hollow when divorced from action. When you rush to explain your good intentions, you are subtly admitting that your actions are not strong enough to stand on their own. You are pleading with the world to see you in a certain light. Let us turn to the story of Cato the Younger, a prominent Stoic of the Roman Republic, known for his unyielding integrity. One day, while walking through the public baths, Cato was struck in the face by a careless and arrogant man. The man, realizing he had just assaulted a highly respected senator, rushed to apologize and nervously offered a barrage of explanations and excuses for his clumsy, violent behavior. Cato simply looked at him and said, "I don't remember being struck." Cato did not demand an explanation, nor did he offer a lecture on his own dignity. He didn't explain his right to be angry or outline the consequences of the man's actions. By refusing to engage in the chaotic emotional exchange, Cato retained absolute power. His character was an impenetrable fortress. When you feel the urge to explain why you are making a life change, setting a boundary, or walking away from a toxic situation, pause. Remember Cato. Remember Martin. Your choices are the architecture of your life. They do not require an accompanying brochure for the public to read. If you are acting with virtue, justice, and courage, those actions will eventually cast a long, undeniable shadow. And if people misinterpret your shadow, that is their blindness, not your flaw. Lesson 2. The illusion of control over perception. At the very heart of Stoic philosophy lies a concept so simple it is terrifying, yet so profound it is entirely liberating: The dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a man who was born into slavery, endured a broken leg at the hands of a cruel master, and later gained his freedom to become one of the most brilliant philosophical minds of antiquity, laid it out plainly. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Why do we explain ourselves? If we strip away our self-deception, the answer is usually control. We over-explain because we are desperately trying to control the narrative. We want to mold the listener's mind, to grab the steering wheel of their perception and force them to see us as smart, kind, justified, or correct. But Epictetus warns us that another person's mind is a foreign country. You have no jurisdiction there. Imagine you are standing at the edge of the ocean, trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. This is what you are doing when you exhaust yourself trying to change how someone views your decisions. You can give them the most articulate, well-reasoned, heartfelt explanation in the universe. But their reception of your words is filtered through their biases, their insecurities, their past trauma, and their mood in that exact moment. If they are committed to misunderstanding you, no amount of explanation will save you. If they secretly resent your success, your explanation of how hard you worked will only sound like bragging. If they benefit from you having no boundaries, your explanation of why you need space will sound like a personal attack to them. When you internalize the dichotomy of control, the urge to explain begins to wither. You realize that your only job is to ensure your intent is pure and your actions are just. The resulting reputation, the echo of your actions in the minds of others, is completely out of your hands. Surrender the illusion of control. When you stop trying to manage everyone's perception of you, you suddenly have an abundance of energy to manage the only thing you actually own: your own mind. Having realized that explaining ourselves is often a futile attempt to control the uncontrollable, we must now turn our attention inward. If we are no longer leaking our power through endless justifications, how do we handle the pressure when the world demands answers? How do we withstand the awkwardness, the judgment, and the silence? We build a fortress. Stoicism is not about becoming a cold, unfeeling stone. It is about becoming deeply rooted, like an ancient oak tree that does not bend to every passing breeze of public inquiry. In these lessons, we explore how to wield the ultimate weapons of the Stoic arsenal: strategic silence and the radical reframing of our internal narrative. Lesson 3. Silence as both weapon and shield. Seneca, the statesman, playwright, and Stoic philosopher, lived in the turbulent and deadly court of Emperor Nero. He navigated an environment where the wrong word could literally cost you your life. Seneca understood something that modern society has completely forgotten: the immense, terrifying power of stillness. In the modern world, silence makes us uncomfortable. If there is a pause in the conversation, we rush to fill it. If someone looks at us with a questioning gaze, we immediately start talking, spilling our secrets, our doubts, and our justifications. We use words as a nervous defense mechanism. Stoicism teaches us to make friends with silence. Silence is not an absence of communication. It is one of the most profound statements you can make. Consider the psychology of the over-explainer. When someone questions your boundary, "Why won't you lend me money again?" Or, "Why are you leaving the party so early?" They are tossing a ball into your court. When you begin to over-explain, "Well, you see, my budget is really tight right now because," Or, I just have this headache and I really need to sleep. You are picking up that ball and eagerly tossing it back, engaging in their game. What happens if you simply state your boundary and let silence follow? I won't be able to lend you money. I am heading home now. Then, nothing. The silence that follows a clear, undefended statement is incredibly heavy. Without your nervous chatter to distract them, the other person is forced to sit with the reality of your boundary. They are forced to confront their own reaction. Silence is a shield because it gives the critic nothing to grasp. You cannot argue with silence. You cannot twist silence out of context. You cannot manipulate a pause. But silence is also a weapon, a tool of profound self-respect. When you choose not to explain, you are sending a subconscious signal to yourself and the world. My decisions are valid simply because I have made them. They do not require external auditing. Next time you are pressured to justify a personal choice, give your answer concisely, and then shut your mouth. Breathe. Let the silence stretch out. Watch how the dynamic of power shifts instantly in the room. The person who is comfortable in the silence is the person who holds the power. Lesson 4. You are not on trial. Why do we feel this desperate need to provide evidence for our lives? It is because we walk through the world carrying an imaginary courtroom in our minds. We act as if there is a judge banging a gavel, a jury of our peers taking notes, and a prosecutor trying to poke holes in our alibis. We imagine that our parents, our co-workers, our friends, and even random strangers on the internet are the jury. And so, we step up to the witness stand every single day, raising our right hand, swearing to tell the truth, and defending our right to exist exactly as we are. It is an exhausting way to live. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to zoom out and look at the vast expanse of time and space. He frequently wrote about the impermanence of all things, the empires that fall, the generations that fade into dust, the fleeting nature of fame and memory. All is ephemeral. Fame and the famous as well. When you look at your life through the cosmic lens of Stoicism, the idea that you are on trial in front of your peers becomes absurd. Who is this jury you are so afraid of? They are just flawed, anxious, stumbling human beings, exactly like you. They are dealing with their own insecurities, their own mortality, and their own unexamined lives. You have elevated regular people to the status of judges. You have handed them a gavel they never earned. To take your power back, you must conceptually step down from the witness stand. You must realize that the court is adjourned, and in fact, it never existed in the first place. When someone says, "I don't understand why you would choose a career in art instead of finance," your instinct is to produce your evidence. You want to talk about passion, about a recent commission, about your life philosophy. Instead, step down from the stand. Realize this is not a cross-examination. You can simply smile and say, "It is an unconventional path, but it's the one I've chosen." By refusing to present evidence, you dismantle the courtroom. You strip the other person of their imaginary robe and gavel. You remind yourself that you were born a sovereign individual, endowed with a rational mind, and the only judge you will ever truly have to answer to is the reflection in your mirror and the alignment of your soul with virtue. When you stop over-explaining, you stop treating your energy like cheap currency to be handed out to every passing beggar. You begin to understand the immense value of your own peace, and you learn to let go of the greatest ego trap of all, the desperate need to be proven right. Lesson 5. Letting go of the need to be right in their eyes. One of the most difficult hurdles in mastering the art of not explaining yourself is the human ego. We love to be right. More accurately, we love to be acknowledged as being right. When a conflict arises or a misunderstanding occurs, the ego flares up like a match struck in a dark room. If someone accuses you of something untrue or questions your logic, the ego screams, "Wait, they have the wrong information. If I just explain the sequence of events, if I just show them the data, they will see that I am right and they are wrong." But Stoicism asks us to look deeper. Why do you need them to know you are right? If you possess the truth, isn't the truth enough? Consider the trial of Socrates, the philosophical godfather of the Stoics. When Socrates was brought before the Athenian court on trumped-up charges of corrupting the youth and impiety, he faced a literal jury of hundreds of men. His life was on the line. Did Socrates grovel? Did he weep? Did he exhaustively try to justify every conversation he ever had to ensure they knew he was a good guy? No. Socrates spoke his truth calmly. He refused to pander to their emotions. He essentially told them, "This is who I am. This is what I do. If you wish to kill me for it, so be it. But I will not abandon my philosophy or beg for your understanding." Socrates understood that true sovereignty means your internal knowing is sufficient. You do not need the external stamp of approval from a confused public to validate your reality. When you over-explain, you are subtly submitting to the other person's reality. You are saying, "My truth doesn't feel real until you agree with it." To give your power back to yourself, you must practice the profound discipline of being misunderstood. Let people be wrong about you. Let them hold an inaccurate version of you in their minds. It is a terrifying exercise at first, but it is ultimately the most freeing experience you can have. When someone willfully misinterprets your actions and you feel the burning urge to correct the record, take a breath. Tell yourself, "I know my intentions. The truth exists, whether they see it or not. I do not need to be right in their story. I only need to be right in my own soul." Let go of their narrative. Their misunderstanding is their burden to carry, not yours to solve. Lesson 6. The energy cost of the explanation tax. Seneca wrote a brilliant and deeply unsettling essay titled On the Shortness of Life, in which he criticizes humanity not for lacking time, but for misusing it. According to him, life is not inherently short. We simply make it so by scattering our attention across trivial concerns. He writes, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property. But as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. In other words, we obsess over protecting material possessions while casually surrendering the most irreplaceable resource we have, our time. If we expand Seneca's insight beyond time alone and include mental and emotional energy, we begin to see an even more subtle form of self-exhaustion, the phenomenon we can call the explanation tax. This is the hidden cost we pay every time we feel compelled to justify ourselves to people who are not truly invested in our well-being. Every instance of drafting a long, carefully structured message to defend your actions, every moment spent pacing back and forth, rehearsing a speech to convince someone of your intentions, every sleepless night at 2 a.m. spent constructing imaginary conversations where you finally win an argument that never needed to happen in the first place. All of these are payments made to an invisible system that gives nothing back. What is being taxed here is not money, but something far more precious, your life force. The same energy that could be used to build meaningful work, strengthen your body, deepen your relationships, or cultivate inner peace is instead being burned in the furnace of imagined judgment. You are effectively exchanging your vitality for the temporary illusion of approval from people who may never truly understand or accept you. Stoicism demands a radical shift in how we evaluate this expenditure. It teaches us to become strict auditors of our own mental economy. Imagine yourself as the CEO of your inner life. Each day, you are allocated a limited amount of psychological capital. Every thought, every emotional reaction, every internal argument is an investment decision. The question becomes brutally simple. Are you investing in your own growth and stability, or are you funding the fluctuating opinions of others, an asset that has no guaranteed return and often collapses without warning? When you begin to refuse unnecessary explanations, you immediately stop paying this hidden tax. You reclaim enormous amounts of energy that were previously lost in invisible transactions. Think about how much mental clarity would return if you simply stopped sending messages that only exist to defend your choices. Think about how much emotional space would open up if you no longer rehearsed arguments in the shower or relived conversations in your mind as if they were unresolved court cases. The Stoic practice is not about rudeness or emotional detachment. It is about precision. When explanation is not required, silence becomes the most efficient and dignified response. A brief, calm answer is enough. Beyond that point, additional justification rarely leads to understanding. It only deepens entanglement in unnecessary emotional labor. The next time you feel the urge to construct an elaborate defense of your actions, pause and translate that impulse into something visible. Imagine withdrawing a bill from your wallet and handing it to a stranger who offers nothing in return. That is what you are doing every time you over-explain yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. Reclaim that energy. Redirect it back into your life. Let your actions, your consistency, and your character speak louder than any explanation ever could. Over time, you build something far more powerful than approval. You build a life so grounded in clarity and self-respect that justification becomes irrelevant. And in that state, silence is no longer avoidance. It is mastery. Having established the fortress of the mind and reclaimed our sovereign energy, we must now address the practical reality of living in the world. Stoicism is not a philosophy of isolation. It was born in the bustling agoras of Athens and refined in the political arenas of Rome. The Stoics were senators, merchants, teachers, and emperors. They had to interact with demanding people, navigate complex relationships, and set clear boundaries. How then do we move through a highly connected, demanding society without constantly explaining ourselves? How do we differentiate between being a responsible, communicative human being and being a defensive, over-explaining people-pleaser? In this part, we examine the architecture of a true boundary. We will learn the vital difference between sharing information and begging for validation. And we will master one of the most difficult linguistic skills in the modern world, the unadorned, undefended refusal. Lesson 7. The difference between transparency and justification. A common misunderstanding of this Stoic principle is the belief that you must become entirely silent, offering no communication to your loved ones or colleagues. Critics might ask, if I never explain myself, how can I be a good partner? How can I be a team player at work? Here, we must make a razor-sharp distinction between transparency and justification. Transparency is an act of respect. It is the sharing of information necessary for the functioning of a relationship or a duty. Justification, on the other hand, is an act of submission. It is the desperate offering of excuses to avoid judgment or conflict. Imagine you are the captain of a ship. If you decide to change course to avoid a storm, you must communicate this to your crew. Transparency sounds like this. We are altering our course 20 degrees to the west to avoid the incoming weather system. Adjust the sails. You are providing the necessary information so the crew can function. You are clear, direct, and authoritative. Justification sounds like this. Listen, I know we were supposed to go east, and I'm really sorry to change things on you guys, but I was looking at the clouds, and I just feel like it might get really rough. And I hope you understand why I'm making this decision. It's just really stressful. In the first scenario, you are leading. In the second, you are pleading. Epictetus taught that we must play our given roles in life with dignity. If you are a parent, be a parent. If you are a friend, be a friend. These roles require communication, but they do not require you to surrender your dignity by putting every choice up for a popular vote. When you make a decision in your personal life, whether it is taking a new job, ending a relationship, or changing your lifestyle, you can be transparent with the people it affects without falling into justification. You can say, I have decided to change my career path to pursue writing. If they ask why, you can offer a simple truth. It aligns better with my long-term goals. If they push further, demanding to know how you will survive, questioning your logic, and challenging your sanity, this is where the line is drawn. You have been transparent. You have offered the necessary information. You do not need to justify the mechanics of your soul to them. The Stoic knows that when you transition from transparency to justification, you are handing the steering wheel of your life over to the passenger. You are essentially saying, I have made a choice, but I will only proceed if you give me permission and validate my reasoning. Reclaim your power by stating your truth as a fact, not as a proposal. You are not submitting a draft of your life to an editor. You are writing the final copy in ink. Give people the gift of honesty, but never hand them the deed to your self-respect. Lesson 8. Letting your no be complete. There is a strange linguistic virus that has infected modern communication, the inability to simply say no. When we are invited to an event we do not want to attend, asked for a favor we cannot fulfill, or pressured to take on a task that violates our boundaries, we almost never use that two-letter word on its own. Instead, we dress it up in elaborate costumes. We construct fragile, teetering towers of excuses. I would love to come, but my car is making a weird noise, and I think I might be coming down with a cold, and I really have to wake up early for this thing. Why do we do this? We do this because we are terrified of the friction that a raw, unadorned no might cause. We want to soften the blow. We want the other person to know that we would have complied if only the universe hadn't conspired against us with broken cars and phantom colds. We are trying to protect our image as a nice person. But the Stoics recognized that this kind of people-pleasing is actually a subtle form of deceit. It is a lack of courage. And worse, it gives the other person a problem to solve. When you offer an excuse instead of a boundary, you invite negotiation. If you say you can't attend a dinner because you don't have a ride, the inviter will instantly say, "Oh, no problem, I can come pick you up." Now you are trapped. Your excuse has been dismantled, and you are forced to either invent a second, even flimsier excuse, or resentfully agree to something you never wanted to do. Marcus Aurelius valued directness and simplicity above almost all other traits in communication. He despised manipulation and verbal tap dancing. He wrote, "A man's true character is revealed in his words. Let them be simple, honest, and direct. A crooked branch casts a crooked shadow. To reclaim your power, you must learn to let your no be a complete sentence. You must strip away the trailing comma of excuses. This does not mean you must be cruel or aggressive. You can be incredibly polite while remaining entirely firm. Thank you so much for the invitation, but I won't be able to make it. I appreciate you thinking of me for this project, but I am unable to take it on. If the person presses you and asks, why not? You must resist the primal urge to invent a justification. You simply hold the line. It just doesn't work for my schedule right now. When you practice the undefended refusal, something miraculous happens. Initially, it will feel incredibly uncomfortable. Your heart will race, and your mind will scream at you to fill the silence with apologies. But as the silence settles, you will realize that the sky has not fallen. The earth has not opened up to swallow you. You have simply stated a boundary, and the world has continued to spin. By eliminating excuses from your vocabulary, you train yourself to stand firmly in your own autonomy. You stop treating your desires, your rest, and your time as things that need to be excused or apologized for. Your no becomes an unbreakable shield, protecting the most sacred asset you possess, your freedom to choose. We have journeyed through the traps of justification, built our internal fortresses of silence, and learned to draw unshakable boundaries in the external world. Now we arrive at the summit of Stoic philosophy. What is the ultimate goal of never explaining yourself? It is not merely to win arguments or to appear mysterious. The ultimate goal is apatheia, a Greek term used by the Stoics that does not mean apathy in the modern sense of not caring, but rather signifies a state of profound inner tranquility, a freedom from being disturbed by irrational passions or external chaos. In this final part, we explore how letting go of the need to explain leads directly to the ultimate freedom, the freedom from needing closure from others and the supreme realization of your own unshakable nature. Lesson 9. Releasing the need for closure from others. One of the most painful arenas in which we endlessly over-explain ourselves is at the end of things. The end of a romantic relationship, the departure from a toxic workplace, or the severing of a long-standing friendship. During these ruptures, we often feel a desperate, burning need for closure. We sit down for hours-long conversations, writing multi-page emails, hashing out every single detail, grievance, and misunderstanding. We want the other person to understand exactly why we are leaving. We want them to admit their faults. We want them to validate our pain. We believe that if we can just explain our perspective perfectly, the book will close neatly, and we can walk away in peace. But Stoicism teaches us a hard, necessary truth. Waiting for someone else to give you closure is like waiting for a thief to return your stolen property. It is a surrender of your power to the very person who likely caused your distress in the first place. Seneca the Younger experienced one of the most traumatic endings imaginable. Through the political machinations of the Roman court, he was falsely accused of adultery and exiled by the Emperor Claudius to the barren, hostile island of Corsica. He was stripped of his wealth, his status, and his home. Did Seneca spend his days writing endless, pathetic letters to the emperor, begging for him to understand his innocence? Did he waste away demanding closure from a corrupt system? No. While in exile, he turned inward. He wrote profound philosophical works. He found his closure in his own rational mind, famously declaring that the mind is a kingdom unto itself, and that a man can be happy anywhere if his soul is in order. When you are walking away from a toxic situation, the act of walking away is the closure. You do not owe your abuser, your manipulator, or your toxic boss an autopsy of the relationship. When you try to explain to someone why their behavior hurt you, you are operating under the false assumption that they are rational, empathetic players who simply lacked the correct data. In reality, people who violate your boundaries usually know exactly what they are doing. They just do not care. Offering them an explanation gives them ammunition. It gives them a final opportunity to gaslight you, to twist your words, and to make you doubt your own reality. Reclaim your power by understanding that closure is an inside job. It is a decision that you make. You close the door, you lock it, and you put the key in your own pocket. You do not hand the key to the other person and beg them to lock it for you. Let them wonder why you left. Let them tell their friends a false version of the story where they are the victim. Let them hold whatever delusion they need to protect their fragile ego. Your freedom does not depend on their comprehension. Step out of the courtroom, leave the endless debate behind, and walk forward into your new life with the silent, majestic dignity of someone who knows their own worth. Lesson 10. Becoming the unmoved mover. At the very core of Stoicism is the desire to become like a rock in the ocean. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in the quiet hours of the night, likely exhausted from the burdens of running an empire and leading military campaigns, penned one of the most famous and powerful meditations of all time. Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break. It stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. This is the ultimate evolution of the person who has stopped explaining themselves. You become the cliff. The waves are the opinions of others. The waves are the passive-aggressive comments from your family. The waves are the judgments of society, the demands for justification, the misunderstandings, and the criticisms. For most of our lives, we have allowed ourselves to be the water. We have crashed against other people, trying to mold to their shape, churning ourselves into a frantic foam trying to seek their approval. We have been tossed back and forth by the tides of public opinion. But when you finally decide that you will no longer explain, justify, or defend your sovereign choices, a profound alchemical shift happens within your soul. You undergo a hardening of character. You solidify. You realize that the waves are loud, violent, and chaotic, but they are ultimately powerless against the cliff. They crash, they make a lot of noise, and then they recede back into the ocean, leaving the rock completely unchanged. When you stop explaining yourself, people will initially crash against you. They will be confused by your new boundaries. They will push back against your undefended no. They will demand explanations for your silence. They will throw the waves of their frustration, their guilt-tripping, and their anger against your shores. Let them break. Do not move. Do not yield. Do not open your mouth to offer the excuses they are so desperately trying to extract from you. Breathe deeply, root your feet into the earth, and stand firm in your own moral clarity. Over time, something beautiful happens. The people around you begin to realize that the old tactics no longer work. The waves realize they cannot move the cliff. And so, the chaotic waters around you begin to calm. People stop demanding explanations because they know they won't get them. They stop questioning your boundaries because they know the boundaries are made of iron, not paper. They begin to respect your sovereignty because you have demonstrated, through action and silence, that you respect it yourself. You become the unmoved mover of your own life. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is adjusting to you. You have transcended the exhausting, petty theater of social validation and stepped into the quiet, unshakable power of a true Stoic. Your life is yours. It does not belong to the committee of public opinion. It does not belong to the critics, the doubters, or even the well-meaning family members. It is a singular, fleeting, beautiful spark of existence, and you are its sole guardian. Never apologize for existing. Never dilute your truth to make it more digestible for those who refuse to chew. Let your actions speak with the force of thunder. Let your character be the only evidence you ever present, and let the rest of the world marvel at the profound, untouchable peace of a mind that has finally set itself free. You are the sovereign of your own life, and true power lies in the silence that follows a confident decision. When you stop feeding the world your justifications, you starve their judgment and nourish your own peace. Remember, a cliff does not explain itself to the crashing waves. It simply stands firm. If this message helped you reclaim your power today, please hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more Stoic wisdom. Stay grounded, stay resilient, and never explain yourself again.